Welcome, friends, to another session of 30 Minutes with a Modern Mystic. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Sascha, and welcome to you.
Today's topic is Journey of the Soul.
It's quite something, the journey of the soul. It's intellectually, we try to understand our life. We even try to understand other people's lives. We try to understand our children when they do things unexpected. When a child might suddenly go in a shop at 12 years old and start shoplifting. And we have everything at home, and you ask, why? Why? I don't understand it. But the journey of the soul is not based in the intellect. The journey of the soul comes from many, many incarnations. And so here we are, the soul on its journey, and every incarnation is like another frame in the never-ending movie of the life that we are creating for ourselves. Our life is our creation. It's not God's creation, it's ours, which is therefore God's creation. And so we are creating our life. And so as the frame by frame, which is lifetime after lifetime of the movie unfolds, we're continuing with the movie. And what we do at 12 or 20 or 50 or 70 is always to do with the main movie, not the one little frame. The movie is huge. It's been running for thousands of lifetimes, and it's a big movie, and it moves us very powerfully. And we try to understand. And there's so many things in it that it's all about the soul's journey, what the soul needs to learn. And all the soul has one focus, nothing else, as it develops, that is, to grow in consciousness. For quite a time, the soul, particularly young souls, as on this planet, are like wandering in the wilderness, just lost, no idea what's going on. By the time you move into a fifth dimension, the soul is very focused, knows very clearly where it's going, and pretty well all of the pain and trauma is behind it. But we're at that stage, three-dimensional basically, where so many souls are lost and wandering. And so yet the more the soul knows its purpose, the more powerfully it will go for it. Now, as strange as it seems, it is possible for a soul to create sickness and disease that the personality body will go through. And the soul feels all the suffering, all the pain, all the trauma, and all the drama. And for the soul, that is the resolution of many of the things it has done, ill and bad and wrong, to other people in other frames of life. And yet here you get a beautiful person who's going through suffering, and I don't understand it. Why is this happening? And you get like an enlightened person. An enlightened person sometimes will get cancer. And I knew one, and he got cancer. And he knew it was his end. He didn't fight it. He didn't seek medication. It was cancer of the pancreas, and he was gone within 3 months. But he said everybody's going to look at the messenger and say, well, how enlightened was he if he got cancer? And he said they forget the message. All I was the messenger. And so the soul is moving through its life regardless of really what happens to the body. As the soul gets older and wiser, then it's more gentle with the body. And it works through the karma that is harmful. So the movie of the past, which holds a lot of pain and suffering, is gradually worked through. And sometimes we work through it like we have a loved one who is dying. It may be a mother or father or aunt or child, and they're dying of cancer. And we feel an incredibly deep sorrow in their suffering and in our inability to do anything. We're completely helpless in the face of it. And And we know that they're on that final journey, which of course isn't the final, it's just another exit. And we have no comprehension, no understanding that in that long period of suffering, they are outworking trauma and drama and what we call karma. In other words, cause and effect. The cause they have sown that has hurt other people, now they're moving through the effects of that and are suffering it. And yet, we suffer with them. And if you go into that suffering and begin to really allow it yourself to suffer and to feel it, and you move into such that you cry, and the tears are not from the program, but from that moment, you're really connecting with that person suffering. In it, you'll find that suffering is the negative, not bad or wrong, but the negative, and that compassion is the positive. And if you allow yourself to go into that person's suffering, the gift is you will find the compassion for that person. And finally, out of that, you find a deep, overwhelming compassion for yourself that can release your suffering in a completely different way, because we're all full of suffering. You've only got to look at humanity today. What is the key element? And that is massive human suffering. And it's what's based in fear and confusion and all the other negatives. Of course, there are many individuals who are not, but most of them have already gone ahead and done that. They've been there and they've come out the other side. And so right now, humanity's in it.
Would you say that on average, a person or a personality is not aware of the journey of the soul?
That's a good point, Sascha. The personality has no idea. Even when you think you know, you really don't know at all.
What does it take? Now, I mean, this is a direct question. Are you aware of the journey of your soul?
Yes, I'm aware of the journey of the soul, but even I, and I say even I mean, I'm still, if you're on this planet, you're growing in consciousness. And I'm learning at the moment, because I'm going through it myself, and I'm learning at the moment that 85 can be as much as a new beginning as 25. And I find that I'm going through a process. And what I'm finding is, for instance, that the soul I am is demanding that I change my relationship with self. Well, until a few days, I've been sick on and off for 3 weeks. And just as I think I've recovered, I dive down into it again. And that's okay. I mean, last night, I had a raging fever last night. This morning, well, I'm here. But what I find is, I asked myself yesterday, I was going through it yesterday, would I take an 85-year-old man out into my 2 acres of garden and expect him to do the work I do? And I laughed almost. I thought, I wouldn't dream of it. I wouldn't do it to my best friend if he was 85. And yet I'm an 85-year-old man, and my relationship with myself is based in the person I was, the body I was, the strength I once had. It's based in somebody else. I'm not that person anybody. I'm losing weight fast. My body is changing. I'm really aware my body's changing. My food tastes are changing. My appetite's changing. Everything that I'm familiar with is changing. So my relationship with my food and my work and my attitude to me is to this physical body is the old past. Now, I have unconditional love for self, but I also have a body. And although that unconditional love for myself, that doesn't suddenly give me all-knowing and all-wise. It's saying, I will make you sick until you realize what is going on. And if you're wise in that sickness, you will look, you will connect with life and find out what is happening and why it's happening, because nothing is by accident. and nothing by chance. And I am. I'm learning about me
So
and
when
my
you
sickness.
so when you say you're aware of your soul's journey, what does that mean to you specifically?
Well, I mean, I'm deeply embedded in the knowing of being an immortal being. And so that means for me, there's absolutely no such thing as fear of death. I remember too many incarnations, too many lives to vaguely have that. And so it means that, at an age where most people are getting ready to die, I have this sudden feeling I'm being prepared to live. I'm being prepared for life. And that this is almost as much, and I know this sounds crazy, and that's okay, but what I'm going through feels almost as much like a birth as the much more rapid birth as you're born into this world in a physical body. I'm going through a slower, more protracted birth. And the person who's dying of cancer, when they're very aware people, they are also birthed in through the birth canal into this life, and they go through it. And then you go through the birth canal out of this physical incarnation into the grand spiritual. And some, their birthing out is a whole karmic pattern that is the cleansing. So the so-called what we call dying, which I will call a birthing, is the cleansing of the soul. The physical just has to go through it. But the physical and the personality has the opportunity in that to make an ever deepening with the connection of the soul, who they are. It's not like there's a soul and personality. The personality can reflect the soul, and to a degree, in a more spiritually aware person, it does reflect the soul. And so the birthing out is a process of cleansing and cleaning and allowing that person's next incarnation to be at a higher level of consciousness. We don't see that.
What do you
All a
think?
personality feels is the pain and struggle.
What do you think could be the purpose behind the personality not knowing the journey of the soul? Because the journey of the soul, the way that I look at it, is always something. It's something uplifting, right? On a metaphysical level. I mean, it's a journey towards love. It's a journey towards light. It's a journey towards more growth in consciousness. All these things. So let's just assume that you are not fully ignorant, quote unquote. You're somewhat aware, you're on your spiritual path. What would be the benefit of not knowing, or of that mechanism to not be able to know the journey of your soul?
I think there is a point of fusion somewhere in our life. Now, I look back to when I emigrated from England. I was about as spiritual as an empty bottle of whiskey.
To some, that is maybe super spiritual.
And that's all the spirit I have. I was never into whiskey, but anyway, it's a good analogy. And yet, in hindsight, I often look back, and when I began to farm in Tasmania, there was I had no friends, I knew nobody. I was completely just my wife and I. And so the strangeness of it, I suddenly had a crew cut. Would you believe I had long hair? I was suddenly away from my family. I could have my hair the way I wanted instead of having their disapproval. And so I began to find a new form of freedom. But in it, because I hadn't a clue what I was doing as a farmer. I'd come from growing grain to farming cows, and I hadn't a clue. I had no idea what I was doing. And that sheer ignorance brought up something in me. The cows know what they need. The land knows what it needs. And so I began to sit with the cows and the land. An inner knowing came. But in that process also, the soul and the personality began to move together. And the personality took many years, but gradually the personality took on the journey of the soul and became married to it. And in that marriage, there was still no intellectual knowledge, but in that marriage, there became an enormous longing and a very powerful movement that in me, no matter what it cost, the journey of the soul was all that mattered. Nothing else mattered.
Okay.
And even if you said then, what does that mean to you? I would have said probably means I'm going mad because I don't get it. But I didn't have a choice. I couldn't back off. And so I think that point is reached in the life of a person. And I wasn't aware, but the soul was ready and developed enough to say, okay, sorry, personality, but you and I are going to become buddies, whether you like it or not. And so it's the journey of the soul and the soul development. And so the more time you spend with a spiritual focus, the more that fusion takes place. The more time you spend distracted by materialism, the longer it takes. And the great mass have been very distracted by materialism and fulfilling the needs that creates fear. I've got no money, I'm terrified. Fulfilling those needs than the spiritual needs of the soul.
I was wondering there for a second how we can have a personality being born, or maybe even partially being dragged over from one life to another, and then having a soul with his journey kind of being on a separate route.
Sascha, it's the name of it is called separation.
Right.
Just the fact you look out of your eyes and see another man over there, and you're separate, you see the space between you.
Because
that maintains the illusion.
Yeah, because it would make sense to be born aware of your soul's journey, right? I mean, just from a design perspective, if I was to design a human being, that, okay, you're born, of course you are born aware of your soul's journey, because then you know what to do, you know what you're up to, and go. So the only
would you learn love and compassion and sorrow and fear and horror, all those things? They would remain. What are they?
Right. So they would just be concepts. And
they would be concepts.
And so
I mean, yesterday, for the first time, I learned that sorrow is the negative and compassion is the positive. Not rights and wrongs or good or bads, but I had no idea that compassion had a negative side and it was sorrow. It never occurred to me. You don't sit down and intellectually think that out. One day it happens and you're right in the middle of it and you feel it and you know it.
So it seems, you know, that I always like to look at things as deep as I can, and that I'm always interested in the why and then the why beyond that. And so what I'm just thinking right now is that as a soul on our evolutionary journey, and it all goes back to free will, we went out exploring life, and then we created all this madness, which is not compatible with love. And because of that, we managed to create personality, identity, selves, and lives that are so apart from love that they're actually also apart from us as a soul, and that they're kind of having a separate thing going on, like a separate movie, a movie in the movie. And
that's
which allows an even slower and an even less harmful way of learning. It's like it's been slowing down.
I often say there are two movies on the go, and we're lost in the movie of illusion, and we seldom see the movie of reality. And yet, pain can take you right into the movie of reality. Now, love can keep you there, but love is difficult. Pain is easy. You've only got to keep criticizing yourself and you're on the path of pain. But how many people sit at home appreciating themselves, praising themselves, and respecting themselves with inner words? No, but the self-criticism, the self-rage, the self-anger, most of humanity is doing that in their private moments. We never stop talking to ourselves. It's an ongoing 200 to 300 words a minute in a dialogue. And the psychologists will say that pretty well 90% of that is continually negative.
And then the only reason why we would not remember as an ego personality self being born would be those aspects that you just mentioned, self-hate, etc., and so forth, being such dense clouds that in order to protect ourselves, we basically have to be born in ignorance, because otherwise we'd be born in schizophrenia and go like completely crazy because of all the madness that we've accumulated around us, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you remembered all your last lifetime, as soon as you could find a revolver, you'd shoot yourself because you'd say, I don't want to go through all that again. And so, well, mercifully, it's blanked out. You know, my path has been to go through many, many incarnations. I mean, the book Getting There, which in Europe is The Boy with No Shadow. When on Adam's journey, where I'm showing he goes back into part-time, everyone was one of mine. And it was all pain and suffering. I cried my way through a box of tissues writing that. And I realized I was releasing a lot of pain and suffering then. But there's layer, it's like the onion. You think you've got rid of all your suffering, and then you've actually reached the next layer of the onion.
I'm very familiar with this. Yes.
Next day, finally you get to the center. And there, that's where I think you find the compassion. The sorrow has become compassion. And the compassion then, you feel it. I remember yesterday feeling this terrible sorrow for humanity, for the way we've been deceived, for the way we deceive ourselves. Every ad on television is junk food. Junk food that's going to make that person sicker and sicker through their lives until you get to the percentage of sick elderly people we have today. And I felt sorrow for that. I felt sorrow for the elite, the 1% of ruthless, loveless people. I felt sorrow for them and pain for them and the karma that they have in front of them that one day they're going to have to go through. I just felt this sorrow. But thank God it reached this place where this compassion shone through, and I felt it for all humanity. And I laid there and the tears stopped and I felt it's okay. This is just one moment in eternity. All the last 1,000 years of manipulation and the control of humans is just one moment in eternity. And it's okay. The sun is shining. We've just been through a very cloudy period. And I felt that. And you can't sort of do that intellectually. No. You feel it or you don't.
Since there is no time, what is the journey of the soul? In your words.
The journey of the soul.
Because a journey implies going from A to B, right?
There is no A to B. That's a human concept. That's the intellect wanting to grasp something. But I think I'm fairly aware that the journey of the soul begins as just as, I've got to use words. They're not the right words, but I've got to use them. That we're just a point of consciousness within the vast field of consciousness. And through the process of timelessness, this point of consciousness connects, like drifting in space, connects with space gases. Eventually, and all the time absorbing to itself through its own intelligence, the consciousness of all the gases, and all absorbing that into its own consciousness, and drifts onto a planet and experiences the consciousness of minerals, and blows away in a cosmic gale, and gradually moving through the galaxy touches this and that, until you could say on Earth it touches into nature, and everything is absorbed. And in this absorption of energy, of consciousness, it's gradually growing, growing, growing. And some of these consciousness hold the consciousness of trees, and some of these consciousness hold the consciousness that will one day evolve toward being human, and will one day leave behind humanity, like it would leave behind being an insect, and move into the consciousness of great beings, until one day, somewhere in this timeless realm, it's a great being itself, creating worlds and then putting life into a spark of consciousness and say, go forth. It will only take you 1 billion years. And one day we will meet again. And those billion years has gone like that. But for you, it'll seem a bit longer.
That's a beautiful description of a journey of a soul. How about giving some ideas? You know, from bookkeeping, you know the word reconcile. If you reconcile your books, like you have something going on here and then you have something completely different going on in another book, and trying to reconcile those transactions. How to reconcile the journey of a personality with the journey of your soul. Do you have any insights you want to share? What is a good way?
I would say the way is through your intuition. The most powerful voice of intelligence is your intuition. And most people's logic and practicality doesn't trust it. They call it the soul, the voice of the heart, and therefore it's too emotional. And for those people, I have no advice. But if you're a person who's listening to me, I would say that when you hear the voice of your heart, follow it. When you hear the voice of intuition, follow it. And even if it takes you through stuff you don't want to go through, you are on the path of the soul. And the soul does not speak through the head. It does not speak through the intellect. It speaks through the power, the immense power called love, which is the power of creation. And that speaks only through the moment. And that is the heart, the whisper of the heart, the voice of intuition. Follow it. Always follow it.
Also, just from my own experience, I think there is always a certain bus or something, whatever it is, the moment that you follow your own heart, and the moment that you know that, yep, this is what I should do. There's something that just makes you feel like, oh yeah, this is exactly
But
right.
only when you reach that place, that's when you've reached that place. And it's like for me, even though I had no spirituality, I thought my other frames of the movie were full of spirituality, full of my spirituality. This one hadn't held it until I reached in my early 30s. And then suddenly, phew, I'm in it. And it was a slow process, but it was deep.
I think, unless you want to close with a remark, I think that's pretty much it.
I think probably the last remark I would say is trust the heart voice. Be careful of the head voice.
Maybe, yeah, so maybe here one more practical question. For all of us who have problems hearing that heart voice, you know, how could someone try to develop that? Is it about dedicating time each day to try to listen to it? What is a good practice to develop listening to your intuition or listening to
The
your heart?
practice, definitely, there's no question. The practice to listen to your heart voice is to trust it when you hear it. Even write it down, what came through your heart, and look at it and see and say to yourself, this is the soul I am speaking to me. I trust you. And day by day, that trust will get stronger and stronger until you reach the point there's no doubt. The mind will throw in doubt. That's okay, but do not let it pull you into the old program of not trusting yourself, because seriously, very few people on this planet have 100% trust in themselves. Very few.
The weird thing about trust is that once you start out, you think, how can I trust? And then you begin trusting and you realize you just have to begin. It's like a decision that you just make, I trust, and that's it. There's no explaining or whatever. It's difficult to understand, right?
There's no way the intellect or the left brain will understand trust. It's completely in a different world of its own. Trust is creation. And as you trust, and trust is the other side of the coin to love. And so love is the power of creation. Trust is also the power of creation. And as you trust, you are creating in your life the power of trust. You're creating trust in you. And the only way you can do it is by trusting self, not the voice in the head, but the whisper in the heart. And is that easy? No, it isn't.
Yeah, I guess the only image that comes kind of close is standing at the edge of a pool, and either you jump in it or you don't.
That's it. In the end, there's a river of life. Most people sit on the bank with their feet in it. Isn't life wonderful? So few jump in because they keep saying, but if I jump in, I don't know if I can swim.
Yeah.
I can swim in a physical river, but this river, I don't know if I can swim in there. And when you jump in, you realize you don't have to swim. The river
really,
swims you.
Yeah, and really there's no reasoning, no explanation of any of this. It's just a decision. Do you jump in or not?
Well, there's a place, you reach the place in your life you can jump in. And everybody will reach that place one day. And it will stay there until they jump in. But everybody will reach that place where they can jump in the river. And it's just an inner knowing, I'm ready to jump. For me, that was a long time ago now, but yes, and yet in the greater reality, it was in this moment that I jumped, the same moment I'm talking about it, because linear time, I'm learning more and more, is a bit of a joke. Linear time offers us a tool, cause and effect.
You're looking pretty dry though for just having jumped into a river. Okay, let's end it on this note. Thank you, Mike. I hope everyone. Did you want to add something?
Sascha.
Yeah.
Thank you, people.
Thank you, everyone out there. As always, if you enjoyed, share
And
it.
if you have a question or something you'd like us to talk about, send it in to Sascha.
Yeah, or just comment below, and every once in a while we go through these comments and make sure we address them. Okay, folks, this is it.